SuperTalk Mississippi media production. Middays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. Middays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Well studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday, y'all.
Heck dang, yeah, man. We got a little rain at my house last night. Little pop-up variety showers, kind of a humid atmosphere, but welcome rain. It's been a little dry the last. We went from the monsoon of June, and it quickly shifted, as is often the case in Mississippi, to a drought-like conditions. I also must report that yesterday here in the studio, in the host part of the studio, it was like a blizzard in here. It's not as bad today. I don't know what happened, but are you okay in there? Okay, you're fine, because I know that it's warmer in there. We're on the same air conditioning system.
Yeah, but I've got the stack of computers blowing hot air out the fan.
Exactly. So we're all buckled up, ready to go. Kelly Bennett from the news department joins us at 11:20, and then at 12:05, Carolyn Green, the coroner of Lee County, Mississippi, is going to call in to talk to us about the Fentanyl Awareness Forum that she is conducting on August the 10th. This is something that, of course, as a coroner, Ms. Green deals with quite a bit. And so looking forward to those conversations. We got a lot of stuff to cover. The first thing is we're playing shoot 'em up there in the Middle East. The president says he is considering, and I'm quoting here, a massive attack on Iran that's, quote, bigger than ever before, adding that he had not yet reached a decision, but that Israel would join in 2 minutes if I asked them to. Now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, traveling in the Philippines yesterday, said that the president is pursuing, quote, a head for an eye policy, adding that the regime will, quote, pay a very heavy price and is, quote, begging the U.S. to make another deal. Now, the military has deployed significant assets into the Middle East, including fighter jets, a bunch of troops and support personnel, even a B-1 long-range bomber. You know you're serious when those dudes show up in combat operations this week. I've also seen, Rhino, that a number of medical personnel have been deployed into Europe. I think Germany specifically.
Yeah, that's usually the, what's the phrase, CASEVAC? Is that the casualty
yes,
evacuation?
Exactly, CASEVAC. Yep.
That's usually the destination for major surgeries or amputations or something like that.
So,
like they get you out of the field, into the field hospital, then there may be another step between that and Germany, but Germany's like the last resort place.
So hopefully this does not indicate that a ground invasion is imminent, because that's where you would need the medical personnel at that first response kind of staging facility in operation. But that is a concern. For sure. Meanwhile, you got the price of oil jumping again, and here we are about to flip the calendar into August. meaning not much time between now and the midterms, and no doubt voters are going to be considering affordability. That seems to be the term used most frequently to describe the management of household finances. Gasoline had dropped below $4 a gallon during the short ceasefire period, and the oil was flowing again. But it looks like that it is going to be headed to north of $4 a gallon again because of the interruption in the flow of oil and thus the supply of oil.
Futures are down, though.
Yeah, they are down a little bit today, and I don't know. I can't find any explanation for it other than maybe the feeling is among traders that the reaction was a little overblown yesterday. But, $89 a barrel, still too high for what we want to pay at the pump for sure.
It went up $2 yesterday, and now it's back down about $2.
Exactly. So it gave up its gains. However, traders are still nervous about inflation. That is indicated by the spike in the Treasury, the 2-year and the 10-year. They're at highs they haven't seen in over a year. The expectation now is we're looking at 7% mortgage interest rates again before the end of the year as a result of the bond yields. Traders are just saying, we got to have more money because of inflation. You're going to have to pay us more. The dollar ain't going to be worth as much. That's how that works, essentially. So the NASDAQ down 58 points. The Dow up today. 10-year slightly down from yesterday, but it crossed over the 4.7 mark, which, again, isn't good news for mortgage interest rates. The Dow's up 236, so a little bit of a rotation trade going on. This is a problem, though, from a political perspective. I think we have to just be honest about that. That plus the president just slapped a bunch of new tariffs, 60 trading partners, kind of a replacement to the blanket tariffs that Congress let expire. These are described as totally legal, if you will, and not really subject to legal challenge where they may get struck down by the courts. But this is really designed to backfill a blanket of 10% tariffs set to expire today, as a matter of fact. The trade representative for the United States, Jameson Greer, said, decades of trying to appeal to countries on moral grounds have not eradicated forced labor from global supply chain. That is the basis, according to the Trump administration, for these tariffs, is just the forced labor. Rhino, what's the difference between forced labor and slavery? I guess maybe you're getting paid, but you're forced to do the job. We're just going to pay you some menial wage.
I mean, yeah, you could parse it out like that. You could parse it out as forced labor could technically be any time you have a prisoner or detainee or someone on a work whatever through the court. That would technically be forced labor.
Okay. So this country has had law against importing goods made with forced labor for a long time. So what these tariffs are on countries that don't. So it's trading partners to the United States that don't have similar laws banning the import, the acquisition of products from countries that force labor. That's what the tariff. So what the United States is trying to do is force its trading partners to end those trading relationships with countries that utilize forced labor. That is how the tariffs are deemed as legal because of our law. That's at least what the legal scholars tell us. So it's human rights abuse. And the purpose is to improve the working conditions, the overall welfare of workers. So we'll see what happens there. But likely,
kind of puts the radical leftist judges between a rock and a hard place because they would still challenge it even though it's legal. They would still run it up the flagpole and see. But then they might run afoul of the fact that they would be trying to allow slavery or forced labor.
Yeah, I buy that. So it's something to be aware of, at least from a political perspective, is that's what's going on. So on the other side of the break, someone just today, or could have been late yesterday, announced they are now a candidate for United States Senate to replace the late Lindsey Graham, senator of the great Palmetto State of South Carolina. So that field is expanding a bit. More about that on the other side of the break. We are in the Element Wealth studio. Stay with us.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on
SuperTalk Mississippi.
I got rice cooking in the microwave. Got a 3-day beard I don't plan to shave. And it's a goofy thing, but I just gotta say, hey, I'm a-doing alright. Yeah, I think I'll make me some homemade soup. Feeling pretty good, and that's the truth. It's neither drink nor drug induced. No, I'm just doing alright. And it's a great day to be alive. I know the sun's still shining when I close my eyes. There's some hard times in the neighborhood, but why can't every day be just this good?
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. On the C Spire text line, Jerry in Waynesboro says interest rates must return to late 1970s rates to correct this and make me happy. Laugh out loud. Okay, gotcha, Jerry. We may be headed that way. And someone sent in some information about from the Weather Channel. So it's been raining in the eastern part of the state, northeast part of the state. But I've noticed that, Rhino, some of the storms and the fronts that have moved through have kind of produced rain in that part of the state, but hasn't made it this far south. And then the South's been getting it. Here in central Mississippi, we've been kind of sandwiched between rain to the north, rain to the south. South's been getting it from the tropical storm, right, that moved through, that dumped a bunch of rain, as was to be expected. Fortunately, no major flooding or wind event that I'm aware of in the state of Mississippi. But, yeah, I have friends in the Columbus area that say, yeah, it's raining here, and then not where we are. But nonetheless, we've got a little refresher.
Just looking at the totals, and yeah, there are some parts of the state that have had wetter Julys than Junes, but it's far more parts of the state had wetter Junes than July.
I would have to think so. I think about the Neshoba County Fair around that time period. It rained every day they were there, every day before, and several after.
Like some of the examples, the Starkville area. In June, it had just under 4 inches, and in July, it's at 4.5 inches. But compare that to like the Flowood area, where June it was 10.5 inches, in July it's been less than 1.5 inches.
Well, that all makes sense. But I don't know. I don't remember June being quite as wet. Wasn't that one of our wetter Junes on record?
Yeah, one of the wettest Junes on record.
That's what I thought. So I don't remember it being quite that storm. And even May. May is typically a delightful month. May and October are kind of twins, the spring and the fall version of similar temperatures, relatively low humidity, big high pressures towards the middle of April. I don't know, digressing into the weather here. I think about that from my old private pilot days. It's always a good time to fly airplanes. That's April, May, October, November. certainly before the big time front start moving.
Before we get too
through.
far away from it, I do want to verify which late 70s interest rate the texter was talking about, because there's a pretty big variance in the late 70s.
That's Jerry in Waynesboro, yeah.
Because in 77, fixed mortgage rate was around 8.85%.
Okay.
By 78, that was up to 9.64%. And by 79, the last year of the 70s, that was at 11.2%.
I remember it well.
So if you're saying late 70s, do you want the almost 9?
Yeah.
The 9.5?
I wondered
or the
that
nearly
as well.
11 and a quarter?
Well, remember, that's when Reagan was elected, and he dished out the medicine that was needed. Carter was just completely bamboozled. You could just look in his eyes and his face, all expressions, and when he was, speaking. Of course, you didn't see the president the way you do now. We didn't have all the media chasing him around like we do now, 7/24. But he just always looked like confused. I don't know what to do about this. So Reagan gets elected, and the Fed, was that Volcker, Paul Volcker at that time? I'm thinking about the Fed chairman during the Reagan tenure. But, or was it Greenspan? I think it was Volcker during that time period that understood what's necessary here to
he was chair of the Fed from August 79 to August 87.
Yeah, so he was involved in the monetary policy that got inflation under control, but that required significantly high interest rates, as you were just talking about. By the way, what was it like in the 81 time frame? Because that's when he started implementing the monetary policy, raising the benchmark interest rate, and everything else followed, including mortgage rates. What were mortgage rates then?
1980, the average 30-year fixed rate was 13.75%.
Yep.
In 81, it peaked at 16.64%. In 82, it stayed high, just over 16%.
16.
And by 84, it had dropped back down to less than 14%.
16. So I think I've told this story before, but my wife and I, we bought our first house. That was in late 1980. And I stood in line all night to get 10 3/4 interest. The state of Louisiana had decided that it was going to use some of its surplus cash and also sell bonds, state bonds, to finance, to fund mortgages to try to get the housing market moving, because nobody was buying houses at 13%, 16% interest rates. And so it was 10 3/4, which was a bargain. And it was first come, first serve, as I recall. Had to be a first-time home buyer. You had to have a household income below $30,000. And I met all of those criteria, and I stayed up all night in line to make sure that they didn't sell them out and I guess put people in mortgages using all that money. And they allocated that out to the various mortgage companies in the state of Louisiana. I stood in line in downtown Baton Rouge. I still remember, State National Life Insurance Company also had a mortgage loan division, and they had some of that money. And back then, before we had all the automated systems we do today, you had to fill out a mountain of paperwork and wait and wait and wait and wait to get your mortgage approved and then finally close. But
I'm looking at this chart, and the all-time high was 18.4% in October of 81.
Yeah. So, Jay, exactly. That was the all-time high, and that's about the time that we started to see inflation getting under control, getting back to normal, because prior to then, it was outrageous. And I mean outrageous from the standpoint, I remember, Rhinos, back then, we didn't have Walmarts, we had Kmart. And you go to Kmart and buy just some standard household commodity, and go 2 days later and it'd be 20% higher, and then go the next week and I may be exaggerating a little bit, but you could see it. It didn't creep in on you. It was quite visible because it was so sharp, the increases were. On the C Spire text line, Jerry says, I think what he's liking, Rhino, is the interest rates on the other side, the interest income side of things. Yeah, it's true. So you do have rising interest rates on the lending, the borrowing side, but commensurately you have those on the, it's true, on the interest income side. That it was very common back in those days to invest in certificates of deposit. And then he's right. You could get 12, 13%, 14% just by parking your money in a bank. No investment, no risk. But if you wanted to borrow money, you're paying 12, 13, 14% on the other side. And, of course, you had inflation. So even though you were getting more interest income, you needed that to cover the cost of inflation, right? So I get it. I see what you're saying now, Jerry. I appreciate the text. So let's see. The president also yesterday, he says we need to double the electricity to fulfill what we want with data centers. He said we produce tremendous amounts of electricity for every business, but this industry needs more than double that amount. And he, of course, reiterated that they need to pay for their power. And I totally agree. The good news is they are. I was just on the Mary Whedon show. There are reports now where exactly what we thought, where electric power companies across this country are actually lowering their rates as a result of the economies of scale achieved by massive data center investments that are paying for all this new infrastructure. And I'm telling the truth here. They're lowering their rates. I gave like 5 examples of various electricity companies, utility electricity producers in different areas of the country, Georgia, Michigan, even Entergy here at home. Announced a slight rate decrease as a result of these investments, which are, again, covering a lot of the cost of modernization of the grid. So that's exactly what we thought. He also, the president said, we've got data centers that are talking about building their own electric plants, electric manufacturing plants, and they're going to actually be introducing their excess, their surplus into the grid. More supply, lower cost, coming right back.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. I was talking about the Kmart earlier because that's there was one close to my house growing up, high school era, college era, and I would go with my parents often. I was just talking about how during the Carter and early Reagan years where inflation was double-digit and every time you went, the price of stuff you bought the last time was up, noticeably up. Somebody said, remember the blue light specials at Kmart? Oh, yeah. That was a big deal. Had them all over the store. Didn't they have sirens associated with them as well, I think? And the blue lights would flash. Yeah, like the circular dome-shaped lights you see back in the old days on law enforcement vehicles, cruisers. Yeah. It's a pretty smart idea, honestly. And people all rushed to the area, whatever was on sale. Joey the trucker says, I remember borrowing my first money from my wife and a mobile home in the 80s, 16%, $125 a month. Driving a truck back then all over the United States was gone a long way from home. Anywhere from $350 to $500. Then they had to take taxes out of it. Yeah, absolutely right. Everything's kind of relative, I guess is accurate to say. On the C Spire text line also from the 662, transport load of off-road diesel fuel is $4.64 today. It was $4.40 on Wednesday. So, yeah, I think that's just, a function of the escalation in war operations in the Middle East. And again, the president says something big may be right around the corner. His White House press secretary indicated, Caroline Leavitt, he's very frustrated. He's frustrated with two people in particular, two parties right now, Rhino. One is the Iranians and the other is Senator John Thune. He's pretty frustrated with him as well. He called him out. Where was he? Speaking somewhere yesterday. He said, call Senator Thune's office and tell him, get this stuff passed. I just don't know.
Was he in Georgia?
Maybe that's right, yeah. So, I don't know. Speaking of, I teased earlier that looks like the race for the Senate seat vacated by the late Lindsey Graham in South Carolina, that field is expanding. Now it's Mark Sanford, former governor of South Carolina, running to replace the late Senator Lindsey Graham. His central message is that we must get our finances back in order in Washington. Oh, wow, that's profound, isn't it? So, of course, you know the interim senator appointed by the governor, Darlene Graham, the sister of the late Senator Lindsey Graham. The president has thrown his weight behind her, but there are numerous other candidates in the race. The one who's polling at the top of the list says he's not a candidate. That's former Representative Trey Gowdy. He insists he's not running in the special election, but a recent poll shows he's got a significant lead, 38% of the vote to him in the poll. The actual candidates that are in the race, Representative Ralph Norman, he's got 13%, and then Representative Russell Fry, Senator Darlene Graham, the sister of the late Senator Lindsey Graham, they're both in at 12%. 9%. Mark Lynch, a self-funder, a business person who lost to Graham in the primary last summer, he's at 7%. That is after a survey of 900 likely GOP voters. So pretty significant field, and the latest entrant, again, is Mark Sanford. This is interesting. See where all that goes. The Wall Street Journal, the Rahm Emanuel, believe it or not, who is thought by many to be a prospective candidate for president in the 2028 cycle. He served, of course, what was he, chief of staff, Rhino, for Barack Obama, and then became the mayor of his hometown of Chicago. He had some high-profile role.
Yeah, he was White House chief of staff.
Chief of staff. That's what I thought. Okay. So he penned an article the Journal published yesterday entitled, "The Bernie Bros Could Spoil the Democrats' Midterms." So some of the old guard traditional, if there is such a thing, Democrats, man, James Carville, he's been recording some profane-laced criticism of the Bernie Bros. Says Republicans will make even moderate opponents answer for the radical views of DSA candidates. Absolutely, because they won't denounce them. They won't repudiate. Guilty by association. You're either going to have to issue very strong, direct, concise repudiation statements, or you're one of them, is the way I see it. So he says, I have no objection to the Democrats nominating an oysterman for a Senate seat, but this strategy of embracing the Zoran Mondani socialism is out of control, and don't underestimate that guy. So there's some prognosticators, you've seen this, I'm sure, that say, yep, AOC is going to run for president, and that Mondani is going to run for Senate, U.S. Senate. Oh, that's just what we need, is that pair at the two highest levels of the halls of government, the White House and the United States Senate, two nutcase Bernie bros, or even worse, honestly, from the Empire State of New York. So certainly we'll see where all that goes. Just incredible, all that stuff. The New York City, speaking of New York City, I just had to share this one. Mamdani has named Lena Khan to the post of economic development, running the Economic Development Corporation of New York. Really? When she worked in the Biden administration, she ran the Federal Trade Commission. Zero qualifications, in my view. But that didn't matter to Biden. What mattered, of course, was all of your profile characteristics, your gender, or how you described your gender and held your gender. Of course, your sexual orientation, the color of your skin, your ethnicity, anything but your qualifications. The one I remember was that really scared me, honestly. And here's why. Saul Amarovo, I think I pronounced her name right. Remember, she was a self-avowed communist, and she was nominated to be the controller of the currency. Fortunately, the Senate did not approve her. You remember, Rhino, she talked about establishing a people's bank, a bank of the people, essentially a communist-owned bank, financial institution. At first, I just shook my head like, you freaking nominated a self-avowed communist who grew up in a communist environment, right, from China, and brought her ideals into this country and still held to those. I
don't think it was China.
North Korea?
No, it was it's a former Soviet.
Okay.
Is it Kazakhstan, maybe?
Now you got me curious. I just remember that it didn't appear that, yeah, you're right, Soviet-controlled Kazakhstan. But she's, and maybe I don't understand all the inhabitation of the ethnicities. Clearly, though, she's Asian. She's not like Slavic. But she hailed from, so she was born there, Soviet-controlled Kazakhstan. The Kazakh Soviet Socialist Republic. Looking at it here is what that was. That's before she immigrated to the United States. So she's Kazakh-American. Didn't know there was such a thing. But there's no doubt, if you look at her views, her principles, and more importantly, papers she wrote. That's where the People's Bank deal came from when she was in college. That's who we nominated to be controller of the currency. And it had nothing to do with her lack of qualifications. It had to do with the fact that she was an unusual. She kind of made the kaleidoscope of diversity, right? She fit into that, and that's all Biden cared about. Well, the city of New York has nominated this nutcase, Lena Khan, who during her years in the Biden administration running the Federal Trade Commission, she actually showed aversion to economic development and corporations and the private sector, and that's who Mamdani has hired to be in charge of economic development. She tried to block every corporate merger that came before her and declared an outright war on technology companies. That's who's responsible for recruiting business. Coming right back.
Are you in your element?
Now back to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are in the Element Wealth studio. Are you thinking about or planning for a retirement? Do you have a plan? Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. The C Spire text line, always wide open, 601-879-4395. On the C Spire text line, hello, this is Wes. I remember the smell of popcorn at Kmart. Yeah, that was a pretty big deal. I remember that as well, Wes. In the late 1970s, prices were rising. This is also on the C Spire text line. So fast, we abandoned the traditional practice of putting new price lists in the parts catalogs and removing older ones. That's back in the document paper days. We put new price list in one central location so we could quickly pull anything superseded. Sometimes the new price sheets, if not immediately inserted in the central area, would remain in. I kind of bet, Rhino, there was probably lots of mistakes made before we had all the automated systems now that control all that. Joey the trucker says, I hope we'd ever go back to the days of these super high interest rates. Yeah, I do too. And I don't see that.
I think he was saying that about one of these, one of those.
Oh, pardon me. Okay, I see the time on it. You're right. I was looking at the prior text. Yeah, and I don't think I'm exaggerating on the way Joe Biden chose his administration, his cabinet members, just trying to outfit a chessboard is the way I describe it. Saul Amaravo, one such example. But just look at what the heck was the trans, not Surgeon General, but one of the health agencies. Remember that wacko that he chose? It's been a while. I had that kind of committed to memory during that time period because he was on the television a lot. Remember a member of the Navy, right? Was an officer, I think, as I recall, in the Navy.
Yeah, it was Admiral Levine.
Rachel Levine. That's right.
Yeah, he ain't Rachel.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's just a blatant example of he didn't get chosen for his qualifications. He got chosen because he's transgender.
Yeah, Richard Levine.
Okay. Oh,
that's what his mama named him. That's what I'm going to call him.
Love the Yes bumper music. Keep it up. On the C Spire text line. Kmart had the best cold cut submarine sandwich. You can remember the smell of the onions. Yeah, I agree. They were pretty strong. Here at home, we got a U.S. Senate race, Rhino, coming up. And we got an independent candidate, and that being Ty Pinkins, running for U.S. Senate. And Mr. Pinkins released a statement yesterday about health care in the United States and his, his plans, his policy prescriptions for health care, which, by the way, ranks as the top issue, health care, leading up to the midterm elections. And, of course, he's lobbying for, he is proposing universal health care in the form of Medicare for all. I'm reading his official statement. Here's what should make people mad. The Medicare for All Act has been introduced 17 times over the past 2 decades, and Congress has failed to pass it every time, not because it can't work, but because powerful industries don't want to pass, and many elected leaders have been bought and paid for. Washington has been captured by money from pharmaceutical companies and for-profit insurance companies. They hire lobbyists and donate to campaigns to protect their profits. So he represents the problem. I know you're shocked at this. He misrepresents the problem. He says, when you pay your insurance premium, not all that money goes to your care. Much of it goes to help fund the same political system that keeps this broken setup in place, because these companies turn around and spend big money on elections and lobbyists. So it's the pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies that win. It's a business model designed to protect the status quo. So I think the concern and the challenge we have is that I know there are a lot of people on the right in this country that, understandably so, rightfully so, are concerned about the rising cost of health care, and they too stay mad at all the companies, the private companies involved. But I've not really heard them offer any viable alternative. The Democrats think they have one, and it's completely nationalizing the healthcare system in this country, and to implement a model like is in place in England, in Canada, in Spain, in France, etc. And on the other side of the break, we'll give that some thoughts. And don't forget also, we got Kelly Bennett at 11:20. Coming right back.
Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday, y'all.
So, some reasonably good news with respect to crime. We are trending, is the United States, towards the fewest murders, homicides, on record this particular year. Lowest point in recorded U.S. history. Just there's an overall decline in crime nationwide. That, according to the Council on Criminal Justice's mid-year report released just yesterday. The drop in homicides outpacing the reductions made in 2025. So that's according to statistics tracked since 1900. Interesting. Now, the FBI publishes its annual report later this year, but this is the mid-year report. So that's a good thing. Now, aggravated assaults have fallen, domestic violence has fallen, sexual assaults, shootings, robberies, carjackings, nonviolent crimes as well. Commercial burglaries down, car thefts fell, drug offenses fell, larcenies fell. So, man, I hope that this is a trend that sticks around. The only property crime...
I hope the statistics are accurate.
Well, that's true.
My hope.
Of course. Of course that's true.
Because we've seen time and time again deep blue metropolitan cities fudging their numbers, completely ignoring certain sectors of the city, or changing the statistics to make their narrative look better.
I guess if you don't arrest, don't report the incidents, the events
then
of
of course
crime,
the numbers are going to go down.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. So shoplifting is up 5% in the first half of the year, according to this report. Interesting. Something else that I found fascinating: 1 in 5 workers test positive for drugs, marijuana use on the rise in this country. Positive hair tests for drugs rose from 13.1% in 2021 to 19.1% in 2025. Healthcare workers, the highest drug positivity rates at 5.8%.
I'd wager they're also the most tested.
Yes. Quest Diagnostics found the share of employees who tested positive on a hair screening for substances such as marijuana, cocaine, and opiates rose from 13.1% in 2021 to 19.1% in 2025.
You can't beat the hair test.
That's exactly right.
You can beat the urinalysis.
That's what I've heard.
You can mask and all that fun stuff, but you're not beating a hair test.
The leading drug testing lab called cannabis the, quote, primary driver, noting that it accounted for 52.5% of positive hair tests last year. The share of marijuana positive workers increased by 58.9% over the period from 9.5 to 15.1% of hair tests. Chronic use, quote from the report, chronic use of some drugs like marijuana may impair judgment, reaction time, and decision-making in ways that aren't always obvious day to day. That's what Quest's scientific and laboratory director reported. Cocaine finished a distant second in positivity rates, inching up from 2.7% of all hair tests in 21 to 4% last year. Still up quite a bit over 5 years, though, it seems. So that's rather fascinating that a lot of folks are, I guess, impaired while they're working. Certainly under the influence or test positive for drugs in the workplace. I know in my company, in our remote management and data center services to the 911 industry, we had about 75 911 centers that we provided services for. And because those are real time and those are so critical, it fell under a category of certification and testing known as in information technology related to the law enforcement industry, known as the CJIS, Criminal Justice Information System Standards. And among those policies and regulations, and so it's not a requirement from a legal or a law perspective. It would be policies adhered to by the 911 operators. Hey, if you want to do this work, you've got to be CJIS certified, and all your staff has to meet the CJIS standards. And that included drug testing every 6 months, not just at employment. Okay, you pass the test, come work here. And not annually, every 6 months. And I guess that's understandable when you think about doing critical work for 911 facilities where it is a matter of life and death. It's high risk. CJIS standards. We never had a person ever fail the test. Even in Colorado, where marijuana was, for recreational purposes, was legal, one thing that may come as a surprise to people, even though it's legal, a company can still have policies requiring drug testing. And if you fail the test, sorry, we're not hiring you. It's same with any sort of substance use. You can test for that. If that's your company policies, that's fully within the law. But I thought that was interesting.
And I'm in agreement with you that it's fully within the law, that it's fully proper for a company in its own doing its own business to drug test you or have a substance use policy. But I would remind people that a large swath of the country considers the boom of the 50s and 60s in America to be kind of a second golden age. Because you got the Gilded Age in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah.
And you look at the sheer number of people who were drinking to the point of being called an alcoholic by today's standards that were, quote-unquote, building America in the 50s and 60s. And Nobody had a problem with it. You literally had, look at the TV show Mad Men, where they're just sitting in an office, drinking whiskey, having time. Like, there was a point in American history, in living memory, where people having a scotch with their lunch wasn't unheard of, wasn't frowned upon, wasn't considered risky behavior.
That's absolutely true. I agree with you on that. And I'll have to say, when I first started the company back in the mid-'80s, I had a couple of clients like that. I mean, as soon as it hit, we'd be working late often. In the IT world, a lot of the work you do is after hours, so as not to disrupt. And when, man, I'm telling you, about 5 o'clock hit, boom, here comes the alcohol management, on site there. That shocked me a little bit. But no, you're right. That's where the old expression, the 2 martini lunch comes from, because that was kind of socially acceptable, right? And we didn't think about it. You're absolutely right about that. And look, it could be debated either way, but certainly certain things you do, it wouldn't be a good idea for you not to have all your wits and faculties. Managing and monitoring 911 facilities and hosting those services, I would say, is one of those.
I just feel like, because some industries like that, or like healthcare or law enforcement or something, where there's a high standard, it feels like society expects all of society to be at that high standard, when within living memory, that wasn't the case. You didn't have that much weight on your shoulders to meet such a high standard that's being set for people that don't even work in your industry.
No, I agree. That's fair point. That's just I think part of the evolution of cultural accepted norms in society in general. I think that's fair to say. We could certainly argue about, were people able to handle it more and do it in moderation versus, no, I'm just getting stinking drunk during the day or high. We're coming right back with Kelly Bennett from from SuperTalk Mississippi News.
Now, you're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert, here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. It's our pleasure to welcome now Kelly Bennett, Multimedia Journalist of SuperTalk Mississippi News. All right, Kelly, what's happening? Morning. How are you?
I'm good. You know what? I think most Coast residents, and I didn't mention this when we kind of go over what we're going to talk about here. Bertha was kind of a non-storm for residents along the Mississippi coast this week, so that was great news. The system, the way it skirted along the coast as it headed toward 2 landfalls, one in Louisiana and another in Texas, it sucked the moisture south. Yeah. And so we didn't even get a lot of rain, which when you compare that to the remnants of Arthur that we experienced in June, created a lot of flooding in multiple counties and did a lot of damage to roads and some people's homes. So that was great. I guess the story you cannot ignore is the Nolan Wells tragedy. It's made national headlines. It's all over podcasts. The big things that happened this week: preliminary findings from the independent autopsy were released earlier this week. They indicate that Ocean Springs teen Nolan Wells' cause of death remains undetermined. Now, the family's attorney, Ben Crump, announced the findings during a press conference at the NAACP National Convention in Chicago on Wednesday. The state's autopsy has yet to be released. The investigation still continues. They want to pair it with the toxicology reports, which Crump's team hasn't seen toxicology results either. But a couple of things happened at this big press event at the NAACP convention that I want to get into. First of all, their president, Derek Johnson, who's from Mississippi originally, opened the press conference by accusing local officials of dereliction of duty.
The narrative should not be it was an accident before there was an investigation. The narrative should not be the words of individuals who went on a boat to the island with him, but they came without him, but with his cell phone, and you don't investigate those individuals. Without accusing anyone of anything other than the state of Mississippi and local officials, we're accusing them of being derelict in their duties.
Now, a lot of people didn't appreciate that, including Senator Jeremy England, who represents a portion of Jackson County where this tragedy took place. And he told Fox News Digital those accusations are completely unfair.
You know, they understand they're under a microscope at this point in time, but they're being unfairly attacked for no reason other than people trying to make shocking claims and get people to think something nefarious has happened or is going on.
Now, Congressman Mike Ezell told Fox he has complete confidence in Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter, who's running the investigation, and Angel Myers McElrath, who represents Mississippi's 19th Circuit Court District. She's the DA in a district that includes Jackson County, posted a roughly 4-minute video on Facebook yesterday afternoon explaining that every death investigated in the county she serves, apart from those resulting from natural causes or non-criminal car wrecks, is eventually presented to a grand jury once the investigation is complete.
In Mississippi, the rules of professional conduct restrict the information a prosecutor can release during an investigation. Our restraint in communicating facts and evidence is not an effort to keep the truth from the public. It is an effort to protect the integrity of this investigation and the grand jury proceeding.
Now, I want to get into this a little bit with you, Gerard, because here's the thing. I've been doing news for over 30 years now. Investigations take time, and especially when you think about the scope of this investigation, because it involves several different agencies that are looking into it, including the Department of Marine Resources. The FBI is involved now because of death threats against some of the people that have been named in the investigation. Some of his friends, some of Nolan Wells' friends have been threatened with death. McElrath has been threatened with death. I mean, it's turned into this really ugly national story that's really portraying Mississippi in a very bad light. And a lot of people, when you look on social media, they're lobbying accusations that really aren't true. Like one of the things that Crump said during the press conference on Wednesday is that when Wells' body was found, he had a shirt on. And the United Cajun Navy came back and said, stop misrepresenting the facts. That's not true. When he was found, he was in his swim trunks. So, and, you know, Crump has he has put pictures online that were later proven to be not true. And, you know, his defense had been, well, I put everything out there because, you know, we're looking into it and we don't know what's happened yet. And we're waiting on tips from people. And I just really encourage people, as a longtime reporter, consider your source. That's always the number one thing. Consider your source. And like I said, the scope of this investigation, there were hundreds of people out on this island on July 4th, the day that Nolan Wells disappeared. I'm sure that investigators are talking to as many of those people as they can. They have to do background checks on them. They have to make sure the picture fits when they're told things about what happened that day.
Takes a while.
I mean, this is a huge undertaking. And I don't blame them for being tight-lipped right now because they don't want to ruin the integrity of the investigation. And they don't want to jump to conclusions.
Yeah. I don't know if we have any sort of laws that would prevent Mr. Crump from just spreading these untruths, but does this rise to the level of obstruction of justice? I don't know. I'm sure that's very subjective and difficult, and there may be some standards there, but it seems like it's interfering and getting in the way and influencing public opinion in a way that is way in advance of all the facts being known.
I agree. And unfortunately, Crump has a history of doing this in the cases he represents. So, and if you talk to people on the coast, there is a lot of animosity toward Crump for the way he's portraying people on the coast. And there were actually 3 boats that left for the island that day with this big group that Nolan Wells was a part of. And the fact that he ended up the only Black individual on a boat with, that had other white teenagers on it was just a coincidence. The other members, there were Black members in the group that went out to the island with Nolan Wells that day. So,
he's only interested, personal gain through racializing the entire incident appears to be the goal here from Crump and Sharpton. It's kind of sad, but I agree. Casting Mississippi in a negative light undeservedly because it's not consistent with the facts, because we don't know all the facts yet. So they're jumping to a conclusion.
That's right. And we need to wait. And you don't come out like a week after a huge investigation like this and go, oh, they're not being transparent. They're working. They're busy. They're doing the investigation. Be patient.
And it's a complex investigation, I would say.
Very.
Just anything that happens kind of, I guess, away from land, and there's just few people involved, and it's a tough one. So hopefully we get the facts. I personally don't think that anything nefarious or malicious was any foul play here, but we should at least wait before we jump to conclusions.
Yeah, and nothing at this point has pointed to foul play.
Yeah. Let's move on. Cyclospora. We got new infections discovered, right, in some other states. It seems like that maybe some other causes of this condition.
Yeah, it's been interesting. So they first blamed lettuce from Taylor Farms out of Mexico, and then they came back and said that was a false positive, the FDA ruled. So, but they went ahead with a voluntary recall. So I don't think we really know the source at this point. They're still trying to investigate. Yeah. I got to tell you, though, I have washed my lettuce like twice this week. I mean, I'm still eating lettuce because I'm a big fan of salad, but I made sure to wash it twice this week. And in the midst of all this, I think the weird thing that was never on my bingo card was for me to be telling a story where I talk about explosive diarrhea. Well, now we've got this egg recall where you've got millions of eggs that were sold in 6 states, including Mississippi, being recalled due to potential salmonella contamination. And guess what? One of the symptoms is diarrhea. Diarrhea. I was like, no, we don't need this. But anyway, if you want information on that egg recall, go to supertalk.fm.
Stay with us. We'll get to the other stories on the other side of the break.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's do this.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Let's go.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. That's from the All Hit request line. That was me. I made that request. Supertramp, Take the Long Way Home. We're talking to Kelly Bennett, multimedia journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News. So tell the folks again about the egg recall. I mean, this is like recent, last couple of days going on, right?
Yeah. Actually, it is. Millions of eggs sold in 6 states, including Mississippi, are being recalled due to potential salmonella contamination. Midwest Poultry Services initiated the voluntary recall of white shell and brown cage-free eggs. They've already been removed from Kroger shelves, but many were already purchased by shoppers. Now, these products were sold under several brands, including Kroger, Brookshire's, Country Morning, Simple Truth, and Sunups, as well as various bulk grade A and grade AA eggs. Now, there haven't been any reported illnesses, thankfully, but to be sure you avoid that possibility, you don't want to eat eggs that have a sell-by range between July 20th and August 17th. And symptoms of salmonella, as I had mentioned before the break, include fever, diarrhea that may be bloody, nausea, vomiting, and abdominal pain.
Jeez. Man, we got enough problems without all this kind of stuff, don't we? So that is really something. All right, so what's going on in South Haven?
Oh, this was cool. So we had some good economic development news this week. I feel like I get to share a little good economic development news every week, which is great news. Beverage packaging, I'll spit it out in a minute. Beverage packaging company SIP Manufacturing announced they're investing more than $100 million to set up shop in South Haven. This project will bring 187 new jobs to DeSoto County. The company specializes in aluminum canning, PET bottle, and aluminum bottle packaging, and produces a variety of beverages, including flavored waters, energy drinks, and hard seltzers. In South Haven, SIP Manufacturing is taking over an existing building where they'll produce, package, and ship finished products to distribution centers and customers. Company officials say the North Mississippi facility is designed to support a variety of manufacturing and packaging needs. And so that was some good news. And then we had a groundbreaking. Siemens Energy broke ground on a $300 million facility in Rankin County. Yeah. They currently employ 700 people at their Richland location. This is expected to create 300 new advanced manufacturing jobs through the latest venture, which is located at the West Rankin Industrial Park in Pearl. The new campus will manufacture state-of-the-art high-voltage switchgear, technology that plays a critical role in protecting our nation's power grid while supporting growing electric demands and improving energy reliability. The facility will also include a training center, a warehouse, and room for future expansion. And I know you talk a lot about the electric grid, AI, and all the data centers and that. Yeah, it really is a big deal. So
we had a special session last week, and the purpose of which was to pass legislation that reforms the youth court system here in the state, and that did occur. And the governor has signed it, and it has been heralded by many lawmakers and those that are also involved in the youth court system, child protection services, et cetera, as implementing much needed unification of the process across the state. What else can you tell us about that?
Well, and apparently legislators have been talking about this for years, that it would really help if there was more uniformity to the state's youth court system. So before the legislation was passed, more than half of Mississippi's counties didn't even have full-time youth court judges. 9 judges will be added now to address that shortage. Senator Bryce Wiggins basically came on with this, and he said the previous system wasn't working.
It is known in the Senate and the House that for no less than 15 years, there has been a recommendation for a uniform youth court system statewide.
So the reforms actually include 3 different bills. Another one will create new juvenile correction facilities, and then they're going to invest in intervention services. That's also part of the package. And of course, youth court offenders. There's been a big rise in youth crime. And we had legislation passed this year where they've increased the penalties when youth uses a gun in a crime. So it's something that our state lawmakers have really been taking seriously, and it looks like this is just another step in that direction.
So, Kelly, one of the things that I learned just from the special session and all the reporting about this youth court issue is that where we had areas of the state where there was not a judge in a youth court, that an individual known as a referee would be appointed,
right.
and the referee would hear and adjudicate these youth court cases. There's no way you can have any sort of uniformity from a legal procedure perspective or even application of the law when you got judges in some areas in courts and these referees in others. And this law eliminated this referee stuff, right?
Yeah, it really sounds like it's a step in the right direction. And it was my understanding, too. I learned these referees were part-time. They're not even working full-time. Yeah. And these courts are full of cases. They need full-time people to work through these cases.
Yeah, the decisions made have lasting impact on children and their families. And it deserves the highest quality, the highest standards, and certainly the highest integrity, and it needs to be consistent. And I feel like this legislation got that done.
Yeah, I really feel like this is what they've been wanting. I'm glad. I was kind of surprised, honestly, when Governor Reese called the special session. I really didn't see that
Nobody
coming.
saw it coming, right?
But there had been lawsuits filed, and this was a really important issue, and that's obvious by the fact that he called a special session.
No doubt. Congressman Benny Thompson has been critical of these new Trump accounts and has advised constituents not to enroll, not to sign up. What about that?
Do you believe this? Do you believe this? Do you believe anybody would say, don't sign up for free money?
Someone who's made a living giving out free money and represents a party whose ideology is free money, is taxing this group and giving it to that group.
What I thought was ironic about the whole thing, State Treasurer David McRae pointed out this week that just a few years ago, Thompson supported a similar program.
In 2023, he co-sponsored a bill that created baby bonds, which is essentially what the Trump accounts are. They're called baby bonds. It's the same exact thing, minus one difference, one main key difference. And that key difference was that you had to be a certain income level to get it. Trump accounts are for every income level.
So more than 7 million Trump accounts are already active. Eligible parents still have an opportunity to enroll their children. And I don't care what Benny Thompson says, this is a great idea. My children are too old. I can't enroll them, or trust me, I would be doing it right now. I really, honestly, Gerard, I wish they'd do this for everybody. Like, instead of an income tax refund, maybe take that money that you would have gotten back from the government this year and invested in one of these accounts. It's really, how could you lose?
It's been talked about. That is something that has been discussed in the halls of Congress, and doesn't seem like there's sufficient support to get that to a legislative level, but it's certainly been talked about. I've read reports about discussions so that everybody can have some sort of access to accounts like these. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a pretty good deal. You're investing in America.
It seems more dependable than actual Social Security money is, and you're putting that, in every time you get paid. So
there have been discussions along those lines for years, but it just gets pushed back. So I hear on the clips on our news in between the segments the report about Mississippi being among the most affordable states for new parents, and I heard there's a soundbite in there from can't remember his name, from Fox Business, but I watched that particular broadcast live where he was mentioning Mississippi and some other southern states. Got about 30 seconds left. What about this?
Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Iowa. 5 of the most affordable states for new parents. On the other side of the coin, Massachusetts, Alaska, New Jersey, California, and Hawaii, they are the most expensive.
So
now, according to a
survey,
survey by Money...
The survey actually suggests the biggest budget buster for families is housing costs. This study, really no surprise when you consider Mississippi's cost of living is about, well, it's over 10% lower than the national average.
Yeah.
So...
Kelly Bennett, Multimedia Journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News. Thanks for hanging in there, Kelly. Good stuff. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the invite. Happy weekend, y'all.
You too. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Are we going to do this? Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Keep rolling. 3, 2, 1.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Jason in Starville says, you don't like to take a little tutor of Colombian Bam Bam before work? Come on, Big G. Live a little. Man, it's hard enough to keep your faculties together without ingesting some chemicals that interfere with that. So the answer to that would be no. Giving out $1,000 to every baby seems like socialism to me. I don't know that I'd call it socialism, but I would say that it's money we're borrowing. You just have to be honest about that. When we're running $1.92 trillion deficits, it's just astonishing to me that our Congress, which, by the way, just the House at least passed legislation to fund the government through September, and then also National Defense Authorization Act, which would fund the Department of War and its activities for fiscal year 27. Those measures are sitting in the U.S. Senate at this point. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the House has been dismissed, and they're not coming back until September. I think they're home. But where I'm going with this is that's an increase, by the way, the defense spending. An increase of over $100 billion. It's $1.1 trillion. First time we've ever had a budget for that function of government north of $1 trillion. The president wanted $1.5 trillion. Didn't seem to have the votes for that in the House. I don't know that this legislation is going to get through the Senate, but we're borrowing money. They don't even seem to ever look at the revenue. Now imagine running your household and creating a budget, a spending budget, where you never considered how much you make. That's what they're doing. And so anytime you see the Democrats say, well, if we didn't have this, we could spend it on that. If we didn't have the tax breaks for the billionaires, we could have free this, free that, free that. It's just a long list. Like, it's not a one versus the other. I've seen people say, well, we should spend more money on our veterans as opposed to other spending categories. It's not an either or. It's if we think that we need to spend more money on veterans, the fact that not as much as folks want is being spent, is it because we're spending it elsewhere? That means they'd actually be trying to balance the budget and take into consideration in the appropriations spending process the amount of money they got coming in. They don't do that. If that were the case, we would not have $2 trillion deficits. We would not have $39 trillion in debt. So that's a ruse. And man, nobody has more respect for our precious members of the armed forces and certainly our veterans than we do on this program. But we spend a ton. Now, I'm not saying there aren't some needs. Probably needs that I'm not even aware of. But it's not as if we don't spend a lot of money. You're shaking. You know what I'm talking about. It is a huge amount of money.
It's like I've said in the past. It would be different if some multi-star general from the Pentagon showed up in front of Congress at a hearing and said, yeah, this $18 billion, this $50 billion here, this $100 billion there.
Yeah.
I can't talk about it, but we know where it's being spent. We know where it is, compared to getting in front of Congress like they have for the last decade or so, or longer now, and going, we don't know where it went. We don't know what happened to it.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And it's kind of mind-boggling that we could increase the budget of that department where they still have yet to account for a whole bunch of money. I think it's north of a trillion now that they say, yeah, we're not exactly sure. That just is mind-boggling. But that's because we don't have to balance the budget. And so when you could just spend and appropriate haphazardly without
Was it the FBI
constraint.
or the CIA that recently arrested one of their agents because he was just taking out large chunks of cash and gold bars?
Yes.
Just writing them out, signing them out. Hey, yeah, I need this for a mission. Yeah, don't ask any questions.
That's exactly right. And look the other way. Pay no attention what's going on here.
But the big story there, like, yeah, they caught the guy, but you literally have workaday people working in the federal government that can go down to the basement and sign their name and get gold bars.
That's crazy. And I saw that and said, what? You just show up for the asking? Here's your gold bars? Man. So that's how we run government. That's why we got $39 trillion in debt. No doubt about that. Wow. We're going to take a break right now. It's top of the hour. That means Fox News, SuperTalk News. When we return, it's Carolyn Green, the coroner of Lee County, talking about a fentanyl awareness forum that she is coordinating on August the 10th. Stay with us.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply, and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays, live from the Element Wealth studio on this
Friday, y'all.
We welcome now Carolyn Green, the coroner of Lee County, Mississippi. Hey, Carolyn, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
All right, so you contacted me about a forum that you are coordinating concerning the drug fentanyl. And, of course, you serve as the coroner of Lee County, and you've seen some deaths caused by ingestion of fentanyl. I suspect some of those maybe were knowingly, and some were the person who ended up succumbing to it didn't know they were ingesting fentanyl. So
right.
What can you tell us about this? What are you going to do at the forum?
Well, we are just wanting to educate the public, meaning parents, teachers, counselors, youth ministers, anybody that possibly it could touch their lives, which is any of us, really. We also want to encourage families who have lost loved ones to fentanyl to come to this forum, because one of our speakers is a parent who herself lost a son to this drug. He took one pill, and that one pill killed him.
So where do we stand as far as making any progress towards ending this rage of fentanyl on our society? Is it improving? Is it getting better? You know, since the president was elected, I know that was a top priority of his, was to try to stop the flow, that most of this came from China with the intention, I think, of doing harm to Americans, especially American youth. So are things getting better? Has the supply been reduced somewhat? Is the use going down?
Well, I ran my numbers, and for 2025, Lee County had 16 fentanyl deaths. And so far in 2026, we've had 7. So we're right in line with what we had in 2025.
Okay.
That may not sound like a lot, but that's needless deaths that occurred in our county, and it's just too many.
Yeah, I mean, 16. So anytime, obviously, when the coroner gets involved, you got a death that was caused with around unusual circumstances, right? That's typically when that occurs. Right. Well, this is an unusual circumstance. So what would you estimate, Carolyn, you may have that data, is the average age of the deceased as a result of fentanyl?
I don't have the average age, but most of them are younger. I would say 20s and 30s. And I would dare say that a lot of them don't know that it was fentanyl because it's a pill that has been pill pressed. And instead of them being a Xanax or an Adderall, they're laced with fentanyl because from my understanding, fentanyl is a very cheap drug and it makes the pill press go further and makes the dealer a lot more profit.
I see. So, right, that's my understanding is it takes very little of it, I guess, to have an effect on the body and not very much to actually kill someone, right?
Right. Like I said, one pill can kill. That's one thing that's on our flyer.
Okay.
But from what I've been told, the amount that would fit on the end of a pencil lead can kill you. Unbelievably
powerful stuff. So what are you going to do? Try to educate folks at this forum you've got coming up? And you trying to teach them how to detect signs maybe of somebody using it or of just the physical drug itself? All the above, I suspect, right?
We've got 3 speakers. Wes Cloak with Tupelo PD Narcotics is going to talk about fentanyl, the different forms that it takes. We've got Chief John Quacca with the Tupelo Police Department is going to talk about Parker's Law, where you can now, if you find the supplier, you can charge them if that fentanyl overdose leads to a death. Then we've got Gina Archer from Brandon, Mississippi, is the mother of the child that overdosed and died. And she's going to speak on a family perspective of, what the fentanyl did to her family. Yeah.
So what about, Carolyn, educating, informing, enlightening the young people who seem to be most inclined and most vulnerable to this? Because it is true, is it not, that we hear reports that they ingested this drug unwittingly, did not know, and maybe there's some things that if they understood would have stayed away from it. Is that part of what you're going to be talking about as well?
Well, I'm hoping these parents and teachers and youth ministers will take it out into the community and educate these children. We're also going to have several vendors on hand. We're going to have vendors passing out free Narcan. We're going to have the Attorney General's office represented passing out fentanyl prevention kits that have the strips to detect if a pill has fentanyl in it or not. We're going to have the National Guard Counter Drug Task Force there, rehab facilities. So if you have a problem with fentanyl, you can certainly come to this program and find out how to get the help that you need. It's going to be a great community event, and it's completely free.
Okay. And the testing strips, I mean, that was just something we passed into law a couple of years ago, right?
Absolutely. The Attorney General's office has been very supportive of trying to wipe out the fentanyl crisis that we have in Mississippi.
Yes, agree, indeed. And this is a problem that law enforcement is grappling with, and I know it's particularly difficult. You can't overlook the fact that these tragedies, it affects them as well, especially if it's a young person involved.
Sure. That's one of the hardest cases I have to work, is to go and tell a parent that their child or their youngster. I had a case recently where I walked in and it was a young girl, and she was a former friend of my own daughter, so I knew her personally. And I mean, it just broke my heart.
Yeah, unbelievable. So, Carolyn, where is this forum going to be held? And give us a date and time and the location.
Sure. August 10th on a Monday night, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Hope Church on 2094 McCullough Boulevard in Tupelo. A lot of folks know where Hope Church is. It's a very big church. Yeah. They've opened up their sanctuary to us, and we're hoping to have a big crowd.
Yeah. Carolyn, this sounds like something we ought to be doing across the state. I mean, you're to be applauded for initiating this in your county and your community there in Tupelo, but how do we get things like this happening across the state?
Well, Gina Archer, one of our speakers, the mother of the child that overdosed, does go around the state speaking on this exact subject. She has established Fight the Good Fight Ministry, and that's a nonprofit that educates the public on fentanyl awareness. So she's already doing that. But as a coroner, I think I'm the first coroner that's initiated this type of symposium. But it just struck me that we're having too many needless deaths, and I wanted to educate the public. Another thing they're going to be giving out at this symposium is these sheets that have emojis on them. So parents can get into their children's phones, and if they see these particular emojis, they'll know they're talking about drugs, and it's in code for those particular drugs.
Really? So they got their own language using emojis.
They do.
Unbelievable.
They do.
So how important is it that we have laws now where dealers can be charged?
It's absolutely important, because up until now, I've had parents saying, what can we do? I mean, they didn't want to take this of their own volition. They maybe just, like this Gina's son had an injury, a sports injury or something, and he took one pill that he thought was a Percocet, and it was laced with fentanyl. But these parents want something done, or these, wives, mothers, fathers want something done. And now that they've got Parker's Law, they can go after that dealer if they can prove that led to the death of a person because of fentanyl.
So I think this is a good law. Are there any others, Carolyn, that you'd like to see our legislature take up to address this problem?
I don't know of anything else at this time. That was a very big one, and I'm so glad they passed that, because like I said, these families sometimes never get any form of closure, but that's the closest thing they'll get, is to know the person that supplied them did have to face justice at some point.
Is this still, based on what you can tell and just working with law enforcement, or are we still finding that much of the supply is coming from China, is certainly was the case?
I think so, and I think some of it's even coming from Mexico, coming across the border, even closer to home.
Yeah.
So.
Gosh, I was sort of hoping that we'd see a decline. So the numbers you just shared with us sounds like your county, Lee County, is really not seeing any improvement last year versus this year. What about nationally?
I don't have the national numbers. I know we report every overdose death to the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics, and they are tracking every overdose death that we have. So they are working in collaboration with the Attorney General's office to try and make a difference. But, I don't know what the numbers are nationwide.
I got you. All right, one more time before you go, tell the folks date, time, location of this upcoming symposium.
Monday, August 10th, 6 to 8 p.m. at Hope Church in Tupelo. They can call me at 662-213-2794 for more information.
Carolyn Green, the coroner of Lee County, a fentanyl symposium coming up on August 10th. Appreciate you coming on, Carolyn. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Hey, this is Bob.
Attention, adoring fans! It's time for
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Can you see your days blinded by darkness? Is it true you beat your fists on the floor?
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. I've said before that I kind of question the value of some drug laws, just because I feel like if folks want to put that stuff in their body, somebody's going to sell it to them, and they're going to get it to them. But in the case of fentanyl, it's often done without the knowledge of the person ingesting it. Now, they may be taking what they think is a different drug for a different reason. like what Carolyn shared, the individual that took what they thought was Percocet, pure Percocet, but it was laced with fentanyl. And I'm not sure if they were taking Percocet because they were trying to achieve a high or not, or if it was to address pain. But I think that's different about fentanyl, is that you got bad actors that are incorporating it into, because it's such a small amount, you can't tell, you can't detect it except these testing strips are useful.
Well,
for
I mean,
that
we
purpose.
got on the C Spire text line, Jeff and Grenada. I've wondered why these pills are laced with fentanyl. Makes no sense why you would kill your customers.
I thought
Is
the
it just
same thing.
accidental, like cross-contamination?
I agree. I think the same thing.
It's money. Like,
Okay.
for example, let's use a popular party pill like Xanax, 2 milligram.
Okay.
Commonly known by the slang term of school bus, because they usually come in a long rectangular yellow pill, or that's one of the manufacturers.
I got you.
So the nickname is school bus. Well, to get your hands on the school buses, on the Xanax bars, you've got to either break into a pharmacy, get a prescription for them, or find an illegal distributor.
Okay.
But you're still buying a product. So the markup on that is whatever it costs to get that product. The cartels and the Yakuza and China and all the other people trying to make money on this look at that and go, well, I could spend X number of dollars on the product and then resell it with a markup, or I could make my own.
Yeah.
So they buy a pill press, they press out their own, but instead of buying the active ingredient of Xanax alprazolam, they're using fentanyl and a bunch of filler, because the main people buying the Xanax bars are just trying to veg out. They're trying to, it's a downer.
I see.
So fentanyl is also a downer. You're getting a similar but not the same experience, and the person selling the pills or making the pills, the cost is much lower. So, like, for example, take the drugs out of it if it's just scrambling your brain. Say you're running a diner, and you got hamburgers. You're constantly buying ground beef, and it keeps going up and keeps going up, and you're trying to make ends meet with your burgers. Then some random cartel member or Chinese dude shows up and goes, "Hey man, I got this reefer truck out back. I'll sell you all this beef real cheap," and it's a tenth of the price of what you normally pay for the ground beef. But what he's not telling you is, yeah, you can get away with eating one hamburger's worth of this. You eat two of those, you're going to have a bad time.
Gotcha.
Same exact principle.
Okay.
They're trying to
That makes
save money by using the fentanyl instead of the real stuff, which is why I don't really like the term laced, because lacing a drug means you're adding it to it.
Okay.
They're not taking Percocet pills and Xanax and adding fentanyl to it. They're making their own Percocets and their own Xanax with fentanyl to try to recreate the high or the effect of the drug without having to buy the drug.
I got you. That I appreciate that explanation. Yeah, Ricky in Aberdeen says the kid took the Percocet for pain from a sports injury. Yeah. So, but you wondered, though, well, how did the fentanyl get in that? If it's,
Because it wasn't a real Percocet.
Okay. But
because he
that's
likely
what
didn't get it from a pharmacy, because if he got it from a pharmacy, it would have been a Percocet and it wouldn't have killed him.
Okay, well, that's kind of what I was wondering. That's a little different, I guess, than it being laced, right?
That's why I was saying I don't like the word laced, because when you're lacing something, you're adding to an existing thing.
Yeah. Tim and McGee says they're trying to get them addicted. The death is accidental. I hear you, Tim.
Counterfeit would be a better term.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah. But I hear you, Tim, but I guess the problem is, as is pointed out by the person on our text line, and Rhino was just referencing that it's a high probability you're trying to get them addicted, but you kill them, and you're killing your customer, because this stuff is so deadly. It's so powerful. It's not like other drugs that are addictive but don't kill you. But so you keep buying more of it.
That's why they look at it as a low-cost alternative, because you can buy, I'm just going to say, a gallon for a round amount that people can visualize.
Yeah.
And these are all made-up numbers. I have no idea what the actual numbers are. But say you could get a big old gallon Ziploc bag of the pill of your choice, authentic, through illegal means or whatever, and it's going to cost you $10,000.
Yeah.
Or you can get a $5,000 pill press and $100 worth of fentanyl and make the same amount of pills.
Okay.
So that's where the money comes, because it takes such a small amount of fentanyl to achieve similar effects to the pills they're making. That's why it's cost effective, because it takes such a little amount. But also, these are not likely professional pill manufacturers. They don't likely have a long history of being granular in their ability to measure at a fine scale. So they're looking, eyeballing it, going, all right, I got this one measuring spoon. I put the fentanyl in the batch. They're eyeballing it. So when you're talking about something like fentanyl, where an amount equal to like a couple grains of sand can be the difference in getting high or meeting your maker, eyeballing the amount you're putting in the pill maker, it's a dangerous game.
It's amazing. It's fascinating. I did, by the way, while you were talking, I did look at the latest data, 26 versus 25, 25 versus 24. And so the overdose deaths are on the decline overall, and then including for opioid fentanyl as well. 44,025 versus 55,024. 45 states saw improvements. There are a few that bucked the trend with an increase. Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, 3 of those. And then in 2026, down about 10% total drug overdoses relative to the prior year. So I'm not really sure if that's a result of getting more control over the border, or if that's just changes in consumption habits, use of drugs overall. I don't know. Hard to tell, but it does seem to be, at least at this point, trending in the right direction, which I think is a good thing. So something that this kind of reminded me of is abortions in this country. You guys know that landmark ruling by the Supreme Court a couple of years ago overturning the Roe v. Wade 1972 decision, which was the wrong decision from the get-go from a legal perspective. Unfortunately, abortions have actually increased in the wake of the decision just yesterday. And that's because the blue states, once the matter was sent to the states, the more liberal, Democrat-run blue states, they increased access to abortion. And they passed a law that is less restrictive. In several states had ballot measures on both ways to further restrict or make access to make it more lenient. And in each case, the more lenient option won. Sometimes it was just to increase leniency. Sometimes it was competing measures, lock it up, restrict it more, make it more lenient. And again, the more lax measures won. Massachusetts, leading up to this, Massachusetts, their House, just yesterday, passed a bill that removes the 24-week limit on abortions. So under this bill, I'm looking at the bill, a baby can now be murdered up to the point of birth. This is going to the state Senate in the state of Massachusetts. Incredible. So that's a consequence of the overturn of Roe v. Wade, because now states have control, which I think is the right principle and the right policy from a legal perspective. That this is a matter for the states. Unfortunately, folks in Massachusetts and other states as well just lean heavily into this. No, we don't want any restrictions on it whatsoever. It's incredible. What's next? Infanticide? We're bumping on the door of that right now with this, aren't we? So whereas states such as Mississippi, Oklahoma, most of the states run by Republican governments restricted. Laws were actually bills were awaiting the overturn of Roe v. Wade, such is the case of Mississippi, that were triggered with the decision, went into effect immediately, which restricts abortion in the state of Mississippi considerably. But unfortunately, other states going in the wrong direction. Other direction. Fleetwood Mac from the All Hit Request line bumping us out of this segment. The Chain. Stay with us.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
Now, on to the real part.
Dynamite! On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. So we had someone on our text line says, 25 years ago, I was hooked on painkillers. Back then, I would have tried it because it was cheaper. So that was your point, Rhino, a minute ago. Yeah, it makes sense. And
I mean, it's not always cheaper for the end consumer, which is, sadly, that's one of the ways you wind up with counterfeit pills that have fentanyl instead of whatever active ingredient you were looking for, is because the price is the same for you. It's just the dealer, the distributor, the maker of the pills is making more money, and they keep the price the same so that you think it's real.
Okay.
So if you go to somebody and they pull out a pharmacy bottle and take the little child-proof cap off and hand you a handful of Percocet, you're more likely to believe those are real because they came out of a pharmacy bottle. Well, if you spent $10-20 a pill on those, and the next time you go to that guy, he pulls them out of a Ziploc bag, but it's still $10-20, you're thinking, okay, that's real. You're less worried about, well, is that a real one or is it a fake one?
yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. But the margins are much higher as a result for the seller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally get
Which
it.
is why they do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Man, in the old days, the software business was often like that. Oh, that couldn't possibly do the job that we need it to do because it only costs this much. Yeah, it really can. It's just a different business model. But, yeah, you get kind of dismissed. Oh, did I say $1,000 a module? I meant 10. Right. Literally had that happen back in the old days. Mississippi's pension system, as you know, the Public Employees Retirement System, is broke. A $26 billion unfunded liability. Some interesting information with respect to our legislators and other state leaders, including at the federal level, and what sort of pensions they are receiving or are entitled to, what kind of pay. You know, the base salary of a legislator in Mississippi is $10,000 for their 3 months of work during the session. When their per diems and travel costs and out-of-session salaries are added, every lawmaker earns at least 4 times that amount, looking at the latest report. However, in 2025, 17 legislators raked in more than $80,000. That's 8 times what the base salary is. The lieutenant governor and speaker of the House each topped $100,000 last year. The speaker earned nearly $140,000. So the Public Employees Retirement System has $35 billion in assets. That's to, of course, pay benefits for its 120,000 retirees and beneficiaries. The supplemental legislative retirement program has about $23 million. So $35 billion in the big purse program. The supplemental program just for legislators has $23 million, but it only has 241 current beneficiaries. The average state legislative pension is just over $7,000. That's about a quarter of the benefit a quarter of that benefit, I should say, of the PERS system. So the legislative pension pot is more stable than the PERS program, 75% funded according to a 2024 valuation. That's just because of the size of it more than anything else. Senator Roger Wicker, he spent 7 years in the state Senate. He earns $8,000 from PERS a year and $2,500 from the SLRP for a total of $10,500 every year. Senator Cindy Hyde Smith receives $43,000 from PERS and $6,500 from the SLRP program, total of nearly $50,000 annually. So just thought that was some interesting information regarding the pensions, state pensions we're talking about for our lawmakers. There's some crazy stuff always happening on America's college campuses. Just look across the river at the University of Arkansas. One of its professors is attending the International Congress on Love and Sex with Robots next month. That Marco Dennert, a professor of communications, received a 2026 Gender Studies Faculty Research Support Grant through the university's Fulbright College of Arts and Sciences this past spring to present the professor's research at this conference in Montreal, Canada. So I got to ask you a question here, Rhino. Why do we still need to be studying gender? Can't we figure that out by now? Because there's like these curricula on every campus. There's like a gender studies. What the hell is that exactly?
Well, they call it gender studies, but it's actually just women's studies.
Oh, okay.
They really don't give a rat's rear end about anything a man has to say or do. It's all about girl power in those kind of curriculum.
What does one do with a gender studies degree?
Whinge and moan and complain and protest.
That's right.
And teach other little idiots about women's studies.
So we're giving grants for this, and this dude's going to Montreal. It's not clear whether or not the taxpayers are funding this little perk. Going to Montreal, and again, remember, this seminar is this meeting, this gathering, the International Congress on Love and Sex with Robots. Who dreams that up? So
a women's studies major.
Gotcha. So this is what the name of his talk is: Hearts, Hardware, and Human Enhancement. Gosh, dog. Transhuman. You always got to have the obligatory colon in the title with more words after it. Can't have just a simple title. You got to show how smart you are by having two phrases connected with a colon.
Well, the title is to show you're clever. The subtitle is to show off your smarts.
Okay, so it's colon, transhumanist orientation and the future of relationships. That according to the conference schedule. Oh, my gosh. Oh, it's so smart. Oh, man. More crazy stuff on the college campuses. Some students believe that hate speech targeting minorities should be more harshly punished. Why are we even punishing hate speech? You have the right, do you not, to speak hatefully of someone else. You may be stupid in doing it, inappropriate, improper, but in this country, pretty sure you have the right to do that.
But it hurts their little feelings.
Oh, I got you.
I got to go to my safe space and play with my binky and blow bubbles because I'm in college and I'm a big boy.
Oh, man. So a national survey of 3,065 college students used hypothetical statements from either professors or students varying the identity of the disparaged group from white, black, Jewish, Muslim, or transgender. The severity of the speech also vacillated between objectionable to explicitly hateful, as students were asked to rate the statement's impact and how administrators should respond.
How did that make you feel?
Oh, gosh. These are some scholars, I tell you. So,
Did the mean words make you wet your huggies?
Just incredible. It's just turned upside down. Why are we doing this on college campuses? How do you get a job out of all this? That's what the point. That's the purpose. They just don't seem to get it. Additionally, no surprise here, 40% of colleges, the faculty in colleges, won't hire a Trump supporter. Oh, man. Black professors outnumber their Republican colleagues at 11 of the august higher education institutions, including Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. Oh, they're just something, aren't they? Oh, man.
Hey, I mean, if they want to devalue their own storied institutions, that's their problem.
Incredible. Final segment as we wrap up the week is next.
Hello.
You know what that means.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
We'll do it live.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
It's finally Friday. I'm free again. I got my motor running for a wild weekend. It's finally Friday. I'm out of control. Forget the working blues and let the good times roll. I got a little sugar baby down the road. She's sitting on a radio and rocking on gold. Well, dance up a
That's the customary George Jones Into Faithfully by Journey. And that's because tomorrow is my anniversary. 45 years. Hard to believe. Appreciate that, Rhino. 45 years. Julie and I have been married, and man, you know what they say, seems like yesterday. So also, my daughter, Alex, is moving over to the Department of Public Safety. Is going to be, she's not sure of her exact title, Public Information Officer or Chief Communications Officer, but she'll be handling much of the external communications for the Department of Public Safety. That new role for her starts on Monday. So proud of her. Congratulations. She'll do great. Ed from New Hope says, bless your wife's heart. Hey, what about me, Ed? So, you know what I like to tell people, the reason we're still married 45 years, we're the only people that can stand each other. It works pretty good. No, it's been quite the ride, and look forward to many, many more.
What did Einstein say about his theory of time and relativity, where a moment with your hand on a hot stove can feel like an eternity, but an eternity with the woman you love can feel like just a moment?
There you go. That sounds like an Einsteinism, for sure. Yeah. So a couple of little political things, or really just news items, before we're out of here for the week. Green Willow Floor Hospital, now part of UMMC. That is official. So the hospital will stay open. It was, honestly, without this move, not sure it would have survived. So it is now, it's going to be donated to the University of Mississippi Medical Center. So the Greenwood LaFleur Hospital remains open. The Institutions of Higher Learning Board of Trustees approved the donation. There was a bankruptcy matter, of course, involved. That matter was decided in the United States Bankruptcy Court on July 16th. It will be renamed to UMMC Greenwood. So that's where we stand on that. The bankruptcy court order states that an agreement has been reached in relation to the Medicaid payments. They owed Medicaid a bunch of money. There were some mistakes made there, and that was going to essentially take them down financially. So apparently that has been worked out. Appreciate that, Ed. He says, happy anniversary to you both. Something else that got my attention, Rhino, before we're out of here for the week, is that there is a bit of a move, believe it or not, from a legislative perspective to restore the 17th Amendment. How about that? Talking about at the federal level where senators would be elected by, the senators would be, I said it right, by state legislatures, people that we elect to serve us at the state level, to govern at the state level, as opposed to through the popular vote. That's kind of interesting. There's a House bill. The House Judiciary Committee is considering a repeal of the 17th Amendment that allowed senators to be elected by popular vote. So this would be essentially repealing it and restoring it to the situation before the 17th Amendment was passed, because before that is how we elected our senators. 17th Amendment changed that approach, and we, of course, elect our senators via popular vote, 2 per state. So the original Constitution framework was different from the House. The idea was, the people vote on the House, but the legislatures of each state, they send their senators to represent them.
The people are represented in the House. The states are represented in the Senate.
Correct. That's exactly right. And so we have by the virtue of the fact that every state has 2, kind of continues that, except it's popular vote, meaning that it's equal representation in the upper chamber, in the Senate. Each state has 2. I mean, it's a brilliant system. I don't know if this thing has any traction or not. Congressman Keith Self of Texas introduced this joint resolution with 8 co-sponsors, all Republicans. This is the first step, of course, in what is a very long constitutional amendment process. As you know, 2/3 of the House and Senate, 3/4 of the state to ratify, to amend our Constitution. I'm not sure if there's an appetite for it, but it certainly is interesting and fascinating to watch this unfold. We are out of here for the weekend. Back with you Monday. Stay safe and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.